Hello and welcome. I'm your host tonight, Julie Swanson Davis, here with our Blick demonstration. Thank you all for joining us. I got a little special surprise for you here tonight. Our topic of our demo is going to be fiber arts. It's something that's just super popular, and I see a lot of macrame and knitting and needlepoint and embroidery and so many things all over the place that just fall under the one category of fiber arts. Anything basically that has to do with clothing and with knitting and with needles, we kind of lump together under something a blanket we call fiber arts. Tonight, I'm going to show you something that you may not have seen before. It is a little bit different. I call it a mashup between macrame and traditional macrame and stitchery. And it incorporates something that you may have seen before. This is called a stitchery canvas. It's a piece of plastic that's very flexible, and it's just filled with a pattern of openings here, of these holes. It comes in some different colors, and it comes in sheets like this. When I see this, I think about some of the old crafts that we used to do with stitchery with yarn. And we would use this canvas and make keychains and make ornaments. And I even remember having a pattern and making a tissue holder out of this using some yarn and a needle through the holes of the stitchery canvas. But we're not going to be doing that tonight. We're going to be using, instead of yarn, we're going to be using macrame fibers. There isn't specifically a macrame fiber, but fibers that we associate with macrame and not necessarily with stitchery. So when I pull out something like this, a cotton craft, natural fiber cotton craft, you can see where that would immediately make you think about macrame. This comes in a lot of different widths, a lot of different colors. This is a 4mm, and I have a black version here. This is slightly smaller. This is called a medium weight, and a 4mm, and then it going all the way down to a 2mm with this size. So a cotton cord might make you think of macrame. Now, when I used to do macrame, when I was much younger, when I first attempted macrame as a wall hanging, I used something called jute. And jute is a plant-based fiber, and it comes in a lot of different widths. This is a 4-ply, and you can see it's very rough, very natural, has some coloration variations, width variations. You'll find little pieces that kind of hang off there, almost hair-like pieces. And that's known as a jute fiber. And then we also have hemp fiber, also a plant-based fiber. This comes in different widths, different colors as well. This is quite a large spool. Hemp is a little like jute, but it seems to be a little tidier. It doesn't break apart as much and give you those hairy pieces. It tends to be more consistent in the width, and you get a little bit of natural changes and variations, but for the most part, it is much more consistent than a jute fiber would be, which could be what you want, but you might like the variations of a jute cord. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make a mashup piece. I've got a couple examples here that I'm going to show you. First of all, this large piece here. You can see where there's geometric, straight edge pieces. There's actually some overlapping going on with it. And then for a pop of just kind of a natural, almost lacy look. You see the macrame knots in between. That's kind of a large piece for me to demo. That would take a few hours. So instead, I'd like to show you guys how to make a very simplified version of that, using some of the plastic canvas and also just a little bit of macrame together. So we have a blend of the geometric pieces as well as the almost lace-like look of the macrame knots. So let's start. Put that back up there so you can see it. Let's start with a template. It does help to have a template to start out with. And I've provided this for you along with the materials list. So everything that I am going to be demonstrating here, all of these fibers and the plastic canvas, all of this is going to be available with our materials list and a PDF that you can just print out and use this template. Then you'll need to have some of the plastic canvas, and I have some scraps here that I would like to use up. I've cut pieces out, and I just want to be frugal and use more pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this on top of the template, and I'm kind of lining it up with the corners here and along the top. Now I could take a little bit of masking tape and hold that down, or I could just hold on to it. Now I have a Sharpie marker, a permanent marker. So I'm just going to go over those lines on the canvas to the best of my ability so that I know where to cut. I don't really need to do the top because I've got it aligned there. Now the Sharpie marker is going to be covered with fibers later. You could use a lighter color, of course, and then it wouldn't be quite as obvious, but for the demo tonight, I want you to be able to see it well, and so I'm using a black one. Go ahead and do all the lines that you see on the template. And then we'll take that off. And you can see we know exactly where to cut. Now you can use large scissors, but a simple pair of small scissors will work. Take your time really and make sure that you are following diagonals, that you're not going off to the left or to the right. I can see the diagonal line. I'm following right in the middle of the boxes using the line that I just made as a guide, but also making sure that I am following the actual canvas itself. Okay, to make sure that I have it cut off. Now, you're going to find a nice straight edge on the canvas itself, and I would recommend cutting that off. It's actually better to have kind of a rough edge, kind of not exactly on the line, between the lines. If you have a nice smooth edge, then it gives the yarn a place to, or the cord a place to slip around a little bit more. So I like to leave it so that, I'm going to hold this up. Tessa, can you see how there's a rough edge to this? It's not smooth. And I've cut it that way purposefully. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put that aside. You're going to need 2 of those. So I have actually 2 of these already cut out and ready to go. I'll go ahead and move my template out of the way. And the first thing we're going to create is we're going to create the diagonal lines up here. Now you'll notice it's not stitched in the canvas. It's actually just wrapped. Now you could use a needle. I do have on hand here some plastic canvas needles. These are the perfect size for going through the holes on these canvases. But when you're using thicker fibers like this, sometimes when you double them up with a needle, they're too thick to go through the holes. So what I have found is just as easy and effective is to take some quick dry tacky glue, and this stuff truly is a quick dry glue, and I'm just going to put a little bit of that on the edge of the fiber that I'm going to start working with, and use my fingers to just twist it in so that it covers. It's going to soak right into that. You can cut away any excess on the outside, and then just let that dry for, and I'm talking just a very few minutes. It does not take long at all. And when it is dry, I'll get out my piece that the edge of it is actually going to be very hard and very secured, so that it acts like a needle. There again, I have another one of those little hairy parts, one of the fibers. So I'm going to start here by choosing where I want the edge to be, and then just begin making a stitch. And with the loose edge, well, for now, I'm just going to leave it hanging. There is a suggestion for this pattern as well as the materials, but I'm going to go back and forth. You want to go around the back side too, so that there's actually a fiber on the back side as well. And for the design that I'm making, I only really need 3 rows of this. So make sure I have my 3 rows. I like the jute with the variances in the sizes. And then I'm going to come down here and we'll count 3 squares. And then create my next row. Now, folks, I know that watching somebody stitching is not the most exciting thing, so I'm probably just going to stop it right here for a little bit, move on to the next step. Okay, one last line. Okay, and then when I'm finished, I can take that rough end that we left hanging there, and once again, use the quick dry tacky glue, put a little bit on the fiber, the next fiber, and push them together. And we'll just let that go ahead and dry. If I wanted to, I could take a piece of masking tape and put over that and hold it in place while it's drying. And I'll get my next fiber out because I want to just show you how to make the piece in the middle the stripe a different color. It's going to be the same exact thing we just did with the twine. Pulling it through. If you have a thinner fiber that just doesn't fill up the space as much as you would like it to, you can double it and go through twice. If you have a thicker fiber that doesn't want to go through those holes at all because it's just a little bit too thick for that, then I'll show you that in just a second here. It is helpful to either have fingernails or a pair of needle nose pliers handy to pull out the ends. Well, it's that time of year and I have one of those little fruit flies up here with me. They like the natural fibers too, don't they? Yeah. All right, so if you've got a thicker fiber, let's say this cord right here, the 4mm cord, I'll just cut off a piece of that to demonstrate. This is where the rough edges really come in handy. We can wrap the fibers around themselves like so and glue the pieces together so that they stay on here. And I'll just point out on the front here, this centerpiece that you see was made exactly as I'm showing you right now. It is not stitched on there at all. It's simply wrapped. And you want to talk about a way to save some time when you're making a wall hanging. That makes it go a lot faster. All right, so I've demonstrated a couple ways here. Now let me bring in a couple pieces that I have that are already wrapped and ready to go. And I do have kind of a front and back side to this because of the glued in pieces. I want those to be on the back side because if you were looking real close, you could see where the pieces are glued together. And since it's going to be a wall hanging, there will be a back side. Let me put this aside again for the moment. And I've lost my knot at the top. Okay, now let me show you how we're going to put the two of these things together. First of all, it might be helpful to you if you especially are trying this for the first time, to have some pins in order to hold it in place, and a piece of cardboard, foam board, something like that to hold the pieces where you want them to go. T-pins are the traditional macrame security pins. They obviously have a T shape, that's why they're called that, but you can secure this exactly where you want it to go, and it'll just keep things kind of spaced appropriately. You could use some foam board if you wanted to. Some people have some soft wood. Now I want to kind of line these up where I want them to go. I could use a ruler and make sure that I have that measured exactly the space that I want it to be. I think I'll just eyeball it for this demo. Now we're going to create the macrame knots. And macrame, oh, pardon me, I dropped some on the floor. Is really just a fancy name for knot tying. Okay, so I'm going to start over here. And I have done the glue on the ends. And do a very simple tie on. So kind of try to keep my ends together so that it ends up being about the same length. Might come in handy either. So I've quickly tied this on. And this reminds me, it might be better to go in sideways with your pins too, so you don't knock them over. And now I'm going to come back through that hoop that I just made, that stitch that I just made with both sides. Some of you might call this a half hitch knot, like so. right, and I'm going to repeat that right next to it. First of all, going in through the back side, back down again through that hole. And I know this is going to be really hard to see just in this this setting, but hopefully you can see enough to get the idea. And pulling these through again, I'm going to make sure I have the right ones. I want to make sure that they're about the same in length. And then pull the strings back through that knot. Like so. Now I would repeat this until I have knots along here and along this side. But to keep moving with the demo, I'm going to show you how to make a basic hitch knot in macrame. What I think about is a number 4. So if I hold my finger here and make a horizontal line with the left string, the first string, it kind of forms a number 4. Next, I'm going to go to the next outer string, the one on the right side, and make sure that it's up in the front, like so. So we've got a number 4 here with the right side on the top. All right, so now I'm going to bring that string underneath the 2 middle knots and out to the side, like so. Very carefully pull it up, pull it down, and we have a square, well, almost a square knot, half of a square knot. When we repeat that process, we'll actually see the square. All right, so pull the strings down one more time and make your 4 with the horizontal line. With the string number 4 that's on the right, I bring that forward. Now, the 2 middle ones, I'm going to pass the right string underneath the 2 middle ones, then through what I see is kind of a half circle on the outside here. Pull it tight from side to side, pull it tight, and pull it down at the bottom. That's a macrame square knot. All right, so I would repeat that over here and then repeat that by tying them together in order to fill this entire spot. Okay, so just to finish things off, I'm going to go ahead and create another square knot rather quickly, not going as slow for the demonstration, and then show you how I attach the 2 pieces together. As you continue to do macrame knots, you tend to get a little faster with them, a little faster and a little faster and a little faster. And people who are very confident with macrame can get things done a lot faster than myself, as kind of a novice at it, could actually get things done. But it's fascinating to watch. I'm trying to make sure that my pieces that are up here are consistent in their width and how they're spaced. All right, so let's just say I've got this finished up the way that I want it to be with square knots and when I come down to the next piece, now I'm going to take the end and I'm going to push it through the plastic canvas. And attach it. I'll do this with each of the strings. Accidentally made a knot there that I did want to make, so. And if we have something on hand to just kind of push these down underneath, I'll pull those through. Those will get that out of my way, but also you can kind of see where I'm going with this. These ends do not have the glue on them yet. So I'll just add, for those of you who are just kind of popping in here for a minute and you're wondering, why is she using glue with macrame? Well, I'm kind of using that as an alternative to using a needle. If you use plastic canvas, you've probably used a needle with it before. But my goal is to not use a needle, because when you're using thicker fibers, like the cotton cords that I'm using for macrame right now, when you're using thicker fibers like this, then it's hard. They're a little too thick, actually, for using a needle. All right, now, once I've pulled it down here straight, I am going to come through the bottom. You can actually lift it, look at it, make sure that you have it straight. This is also where this rough edge comes a little bit in handy. So I'm bringing it through the bottom, through each of these holes down here. One right next to the other. So put in the comments what you think of this. If you're a macrame artist, I'd love to hear if you're being inspired by this, or if you're aghast because it's not exactly pure macrame. Okay, so when I come back here to the bottom, now I'm going to finish this with a basic knot. Like so. And even though I had been very careful to make sure that I had my cords the same length, they are not the same, of course, after making the knots, but that's okay. Okay. I can always cut them. I'd probably wait till the end and make sure that I had all of them. All right, so I would continue the same way. We'd have more down here. That would leave this end over here because we have nothing in the middle. We could leave this end to just actually create more knots with more cord, like so. Just some more pieces. I'm going to go ahead and take this off. All right. So it's in progress, but I'm hoping that you're seeing how it's all going to come together here. The last thing, and let's take a look here as I'm bringing this forward. Okay, we're going to wrap some cord around the edge. I used black for the example, but you could come back in perhaps with some of the natural color jute or hemp if you prefer. There's my end. I have apologize, I thought I had a piece cut. I believe it's down on the floor, but it's blending in. So I will do something that will make some people laugh and other people gasp, and that is cut from the middle of the yarn cord. I know you've all done that, so don't judge too much there. In a pinch, you do it. All right, so I'm going to wrap and finish up this area. I'm going to tuck the piece behind, and where the edges are natural, it's going to hold that cord pretty much in place where I want it to go and space it kind of exactly where I want it to go. So it actually is pretty fast and pretty easy. And if I actually had all of this joined together, it wouldn't wrap quite as badly as it is for me. So use your imagination a little bit there. So I've wrapped that. Now I'm going to flip it over, bring in my glue, and again, glue the loose edges together. This glue dries completely clear, so even though it looks a little rough right now, a little sloppy, once it's completely dry, it will be totally clear and not nearly as noticeable. All right, so I'd repeat that on all of these sides right here. Let's just bring up the finished piece one more time. And a couple of things to finish it. I would tie a hanger, perhaps a bead, to help decorate it at what I consider to be the top. And then I've also done the same thing with a little bit heavier weight bead here at the bottom. On the phrase here, once you are finished at the end here, cut off anything that has that glue on it. It was very helpful when I had it on there to get it through the holes, but now if I want to untwist and create that tassel-like effect just by simply untwisting the cord, I really need to have that glue cut off again. And just twisting and then pulling apart with your fingers, you'll get a lovely little tassel look, little fuzzy tassel. That is a macrame mashup. And, you know, it doesn't have to be geometrical. It's super easy to cut this plastic canvas into squares and diagonals and triangles and rectangles, you know, simply because we have those straight lines on the plastic canvas. But I would like to just point out very quickly here an example I made just to demonstrate that it doesn't have to be a geometric piece. A simple moon shape was cut out here with the canvas and stitched onto a macrame ring and secured around the edges with more of this cord through those holes. And we have a rounder edge that way. So I just wanted to demonstrate to you that it doesn't have to be quite so geometric. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed my demo. I hope that you are inspired to go out and make yourself a beautiful wall hanging. All the materials, of course, that you need to do this. If you prefer brighter colors, if you prefer using yarn, you certainly may. All of that is available as well at Blick. And I have a materials list as well as the template available for you with the materials list. So thank you so much for joining me, and have a good evening.